Hello, everybody. This is Trey and Lee, and today we are going to talk about things you can do when your marriage is struggling.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. On this podcast, you'll hear real topics about real life. They cover everything from married sex to raising kids to loving your spouse so much that you're willing to forgive them for occasionally being the most annoying person in the world. Trey and Lee have raised 4 boys, been married over 30 years, and somehow still really like each other. And now, live from the metropolis of Childress, Texas, a place so flat you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Here are your hosts for the Stronger Marriage Podcast, Trey and Lee Morgan.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, glad y'all are here. Thanks for joining us today. We are excited about our topic today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very good topic because a lot of marriages feel like they're in the struggling boat.
Yeah, we get messages from couples every week, lots of messages actually, and we have folks that go, I just don't know what to do. I need some tips. I need some advice. My marriage is struggling, and so we're going to share some ideas today on when your marriage is struggling, some specific things you should do and you should not do. There's always do's and don'ts. There's some things that will make things worse. You don't want to do those things, and then there are, of course, some things that make things better.
Yeah, I always want to be proactive. And so, what do you think? We going to jump right in? You got something to say?
I'm trying to think. I've got my first grandbaby due like next month.
It's coming up quick.
I'm excited about that.
It is coming up quick.
A little girl.
Yeah.
Are we old enough to be grandparents?
I don't think we are, but I think a lot of people are grandparents before they're 50, so maybe we really are.
Yeah, maybe so.
Maybe we are.
Well, I'm excited about it. I really don't know what to expect. I really don't know, but because number one, I've never been a grandparent. Number one, I don't know anything about girls, and we're having our first granddaughter.
You're going to have a crash course.
Yeah, so this is crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about it.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It just still seems a little bit surreal, and everybody keeps telling us that we just can't imagine the next level of love that you feel.
I hear that all the time.
For grandchildren. So I'm excited to experience
Now,
that.
we've been talking grandparent names.
Oh, my goodness.
I threw this out on Facebook on my personal page for fun because it was just kind of like, most folks say you don't get to choose your name. Other people go, no, we chose our name. We got to do whatever we wanted. So when else? You don't get to choose your name that you were born with.
I think that's why it's so hard. I'm like, this is going to be my name from now on.
Yeah, rest of your life.
The rest of my life, this is what I'm going to be
You're going to be known
called.
as something, whatever that is. And so we've been talking about names, and I've come up with some. I'm not always the most traditional guy in the world. So Grandpa and Granddad, not anything wrong with those, but I was looking for something more fun. Yeah, like.
But you're not. They're not going to call you Wolverine.
But I like
not
Wolverine.
happening.
Come on. How about Thor? Could I not be Grandpa Thor or just something like that?
I don't think it's going to happen.
Hefe or.
And then you even brought up Big Daddy and
Big Daddy.
And Parker was like, I am not calling you Big Daddy.
Yeah,
so,
our son, who is going to be the father of this
shut
child,
that down real
said,
quick.
I'm not going to call you Big
I'm
Daddy.
calling you Big Daddy.
That's good stuff. You could be Big Mama.
I don't want to be Big Mama.
Okay, I don't
sure.
blame you.
No.
Little Mama. That would actually fit for you.
Little Mama?
Little Mama. Yeah.
Maybe so.
Let's talk about struggling marriages. And we want you to know if you're struggling right now in your marriage, you don't have to give up on it. There is help out there. Sometimes we can get our marriages in such a mess. It takes a while to fix them. You can't always just flip a switch and everything be better. If it's taken you months or years to get your marriage in a mess, it may take you a few months or years to get it out. And so the main thing is it's time to go to work. It is time to get after it, and it is time to strengthen and better your marriage. Of course, this always works best when both the husband and the wife are willing to participate. It is hard when one spouse goes, I really don't care if it gets better or not. But if you've got both a husband and a wife willing to kick in and go, things can happen. Good things can happen. And so we're going to talk some things you can do. These are some things you can do and not do, whether your spouse is willing to participate or not. But let's talk about some things you can do when your marriage is struggling. Take off, Miss Morgan. What we're going to talk about first off.
So the first thing you need to do is just do something. Don't expect things to just get better, because they're not going to. If you just ignore problems or sweep them under the rug, nothing's going to improve. So you got to start somewhere and do something.
You may know their problems. You may know you need to do something about the problem, but the problem will not go away until you do something. And people, we use this illustration often. If a doctor comes along and says, "Hey, there's some cancer. It's early in your body, and we've caught it early, and we need to get that fixed." You don't just ignore that. You don't just sweep it under the rug or pretend like it's not there. That's not going to fix anything. It is going to require bucking up and going to work and working on your marriage. And so just saying we need to improve our marriage doesn't make your marriage better. You are actually going to have to be proactive, and we're going to talk about some of those things. In that, one of the areas that you have got to do when your marriage is struggling is you need to put your marriage ahead of everything. Everything going on in your world, including your children. It needs to be your top priority. If your marriage is struggling, it's probably struggling because it hasn't been your top priority.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yes.
And so you've got to move that to the front burner, and you've got to start investing and focusing on your marriage. You invest in your kids, you invest in your house and your cars and everything else, and you've got to invest in your marriage. And that means we're having some struggles, and we have got to make our marriage top priority. And that may mean, if I can throw this out there, we had a couple one time we worked with that their marriage was struggling. And we had done a little bit of counseling with them, just in a sense of trying to help them. We had a workshop coming up not far from where they lived, and was excited when they said, we're going to go because we're going to make our marriage our top priority. We want to focus on our marriage. We want to make our marriage better. We are scheduled to be there. And then 2 days before the workshop, they contacted me and said, we're not going to be able to make it. And I asked what was going on, because I was, what in the world could be more important than saving their marriage? And they said their little one had a make-up ball game that Little League did that day, and they needed to stay for it. And I just remember being heartbroken, because it was like, but that's not the priority here. And I even made the comment to them that what your son needs is really not for you to be at his game. He really needs you to be focused on your marriage and saving your marriage. And I believe their phrase or their words were something along the lines of, but we've never missed a game, and we wouldn't want to hurt his feelings. And they didn't make the workshop. And I don't know that things would have changed. I don't know that things would have got better. But a year later, their marriage didn't make it either. It died, and it crashed, and it burned. And it breaks my heart. And I know if you could look back, that little boy would go, man, I'd rather have my mom and dad married and them focused than at a ball game. And so you've got to put your relationship above everything else, jobs, everything, when it comes to my marriage is struggling and we're really having a hard time right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very true. And that was a sad story.
It was.
Yeah,
I would like to say, hey, here's a bright spot.
Exactly.
There's not a bright spot there. You have got to, you've just got to put that there. A second thing that we can do is keep in mind that all marriages has ups and downs. And struggles doesn't mean your marriage has to end. Now, first, understand, Lee and I threw this out on Instagram this week. Our marriage is a lot like everybody else's. We have ups and we have downs. We have struggles. We have frustrations. We have things that we have to work through, just like every couple in the world. And the difference between a healthy, successful marriage and one that's not is a couple who's willing to put the work in and go, hey, we're going to work through the downs and get back to the ups.
Yeah. We hear people all the time say, I don't, we're just not in love anymore. I don't feel like I'm in love. I don't love her anymore. I don't love him anymore. Well, that's silly. And you address that all the time, that, what you're feeling, you're choosing not to love your spouse is basically what you're saying. And what you're feeling is that maybe you just don't like each other right now. You're going through one of your down times where things just aren't clicking. And man, those are going to come and go. They have for us. But you just keep on, getting up every morning and saying, I'm going to love my spouse, whether I really like them today or not. I'm going to love them.
Yeah. And that struggle doesn't mean that, how many couples just give up early when the better is right around the corner?
That's right.
Yeah. How many couples, everybody's marriage vows, every marriage vows I've ever heard has said for better and for worse. And there are worse, but sometimes better's around the corner. And we'll throw this out there because I want folks to know, yes, marriages do end. All right? They do. Marriages do end. But our job is to try to say, let's figure out and fix and work with everything you've got before it does. And just because you're having struggles doesn't mean it can end. We both can name off some marriages that have been on their last thread, if you want to use that phrase, that now are incredible because they didn't give up.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to have struggles again in the future, because they likely will. But yeah, it's a commitment, and you have to just say, we're not going to react to every maybe negative feeling that we have throughout our marriage, because it's likely it's going to pass.
That's true. And if you're having marriage struggles, then probably you may feel like your spouse is anything but your teammate. But the next point we want you to understand is,
that you are teammates. Your spouse is not your enemy, and you should work as a team.
Right. You win as a team, you lose as a team, and it's important as a couple, as a married couple, that you guys realize we're on the same team. We may disagree with something right now, but we're on the same team. And work together. If it's important to your spouse, it really ought to be important to you. If your spouse approaches you and says, hey, I'm having problems with something, you need to listen to that. If they come in and say, hey, we need to work on something in our marriage, you need to listen to that. You communicate things very clearly, but you take serious things that your spouse says when there's things they're concerned with or worried about or something like that. You don't just look at one another and go, just get over it. Hey, man up, or woman up, suck it up. This is life. If your spouse has got some issues, they should be important to you if it's something that they're working with or going through. Another thing that you can do, let's just say your marriage is struggling and you're trying to figure out what can we do to kind of re-spark the love between us. What can we do to kind of get us going again? What are some things that can be done, Miss Morgan? I can think of 2 or 3. You give us a couple.
Yeah. Do sweet little things for each other. Maybe send little gifts, flowers, notes, candies, hold hands, go on dates. We always stress the importance of going on dates. And so, man, if you're thinking, well, it's been forever since we've been on a date, there you go. That might just spark things right there.
So you need to be doing things you did when you fell in love. One of the things marriage counselors do, oftentimes if you go sit down with a marriage counselor and you're going, we're just not feeling it, they'll go, well, what caused you to fall in love in the first place? And she may say something about, well, he always did sweet things for me. He wrote me notes and he sent me flowers. And the counselor may ask a husband, what caused you to fall in love? Well, she bragged on me and flirted with me. Those are dressed up. Those are all things you mm-hmm. keep doing, and those are all healthy things. One of the things that we do, Miss Morgan, when I don't think our marriage ever, where we get to the point where we go, and man, we're really struggling, we got to figure out something to do here, or we're in big trouble. But there are times where it's kind of like we need some us time. and I'm always amazed at how when we can get away together by ourselves, just you and I, what kind of reconnection that gives us. I don't know. I know you've noticed that too. That we can go away for a little trip. We can get out of the house and go stay somewhere else. But anytime we take a little trip together, we come back and our relationship has kind of got a little bit gusto and strength and love. And it's like, man, I like her and he's pretty awesome, because
Yeah.
it is healthy to get out away.
You have the whole time to focus just on each other and on nothing else, and you've got lots of time for conversation and flirting and all of the things that you just mentioned. So yeah, it's a great time to recharge your marriage.
Yeah. Let me give you another one. Number 5, at least, is number 5 on our list of things to do when your marriage is struggling. And this is more of information than actual something specific. Is we want you to realize that relationships don't get easier with a new partner. Meaning, a lot of times in this world, people will go, hey, this one's not working. I mean, we hear people all the time go, I think I married the wrong person. Well, they were the right person the first 5 years, and all of a sudden they become the wrong person. We got to figure out what we got to do to get them the right person. But people think, if I had a different relationship, then things would get easier. And what people need to understand is, while upgrades on cell phones are cool because they do give us newer equipment, upgrades on marriage aren't really upgrades. And issues and problems and new problems are still out there. If you're automatically thinking, hey, the grass is greener on the other side, we want you to understand that relationships don't get easier by checking out on the old partner and finding a new one.
That's true. And it may be all great for the first few years, and but then reality sets in, and you're going to start having some of the same issues likely that you did in your first marriage, or totally new issues because you have different personalities. But yeah, I mean, it's not usually going to just be all roses and sunshine all the time. So it's not.
There's a higher divorce rate among second marriages than there are first, which is
that's
a
interesting.
very interesting thing. It is. So here's a big one. What's a big one that we can do if our marriage is struggling?
Well, the most obvious, I would like to think, is that you need to seek some help, because a lot of times you just can't quite figure it out on your own, and you need some help, whether that be reading a book. I guarantee you, it does not matter what kind of issue you're having in your marriage, there is a book on that topic. So find a book, ask somebody for recommendations. There's tons of podcasts out there, not just ours, but there are some great podcasts out there on marriage. And
one of the things you can do is you and your spouse can sit down. A lot of people are using this podcast to listen to it with their spouse. Sometimes they listen together. We've had couples say, my husband listens on his way to work, I listen on my way to work, and then later we talk about what the discussion was for the day. And talk about a great strengthening your marriage tool is listening to a podcast and then discussing it. So that's a good thing. You mentioned books for just a second. Man, if your marriage is struggling, don't be that guy that goes, yeah, but I just don't like to read. You figure out something to do to strengthen your marriage. And it's not just going, well, I'm going to try and do better. You be proactive in doing something like reading a book, listening to a podcast, but don't just say, hopefully things will get better over time.
Yeah. They usually don't, when you just ignore things and decide to sweep them under the rug like that. So, stop doing what's hurting your marriage. If you're, if you can pinpoint and what you're doing, things, what the trouble is, then stop doing those things. That seems obvious, right?
Anger?
Yeah.
We're actually going to talk anger next week in a lot about anger next week.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of folks talk about anger and say we need some stuff on anger, so we're going to talk anger next week. But if anger's hurting your marriage, until you get your anger under control, that's not going to help. If drugs, alcohol are hurting your marriage, until you get those under control, You've got to seek some help in there. Pornography, we could just go down the list.
Yeah. Criticism,
unhealthy friendship with the opposite sex. Yeah, just go down the list. Whatever it is that's hurting your marriage, you got to stop it.
Yeah.
It's got to stop. And you can't just continue to do those things and expect your marriage to improve. You seek some help. There are counselors, and let me just throw out there real quick. If you're going to find a counselor, find a Christian counselor. That's our belief. Find someone who is pro-marriage in saving marriages. And so to us, that's very important that you find someone who is in the marriage-saving business. A pastor, a minister. Many churches provide counseling. And so they may have somebody on staff. Pick that phone book up. Phone books? Do we have? We don't have phone books
really
anymore.
have phone books, but you could probably just Google somebody.
Google the phone book. And Google the phone book and start calling churches and ask who provides a little counseling. And you go see that counselor, that minister, that whoever it is in the church leader that will help you guys get on the next road. That is a healthy thing to do. A mentor. We have mentors, don't we? Tell us a little bit about our mentors.
We do. I mean, we have couples that are several years older or a few years older than us, maybe 10 years, 15 years ahead of us in life that have, also raised boys. And we look at them and what a great job they did with their family. And a lot of times we'll say, hey, how did you handle this? What did you do in this situation? And it's great to have some mentors that you can go to that have been there, done that.
Yeah.
They've got some experience and rely on other people's experience because likely they've made some mistakes and they've already learned from theirs. So, listen to them when they tell you, I wouldn't do that.
I talked to a friend of mine the other day. I'm not concerned. I'm just maybe anxious. That's a good word. We've got our youngest son moving out of the house. We're about to be empty nesters. And I asked him the other day, I said, is that going to be a okay thing for us? How did you handle it? What did you do? And he said he absolutely loved it. And so it's a good thing. Said there'll be an adjustment stage, but he said that's called seeking advice from somebody who's been there.
Yeah, it's always a healthy thing to do. So when we're talking about seeking help and seeking advice, what you don't want to do is, talk to your coworker who is maybe somebody of the opposite sex and spill all your troubles to them, because that raises all sorts of red flags.
Yeah, and actually one of our points that we wanted to make today is sometimes when you're having marriage problems, you feel the urge to want to talk to somebody. And you may think that someone of the opposite sex will help you to better understand your spouse, but we want to tell you, you need to resist the urge to share your struggles with a friend of the opposite sex. That's headed toward trouble. That is a fair indicator number one. When you start talking to someone of the opposite sex about the marriage problems you're having, about 95% of all affairs begin that way. And man, it's just trouble. And you can see it coming from a mile away. From a mile away.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're watching the scary movie and the the music starts playing and you're like, oh no,
somebody's going to.
Don't run to the basement. Why would you try to run to the basement? Get out of the house and run to the neighbor's house where there's other living bodies. Don't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like you can just see it coming when the music starts playing.
And I promise you, when you start talking to someone of the opposite sex, the music starts playing and it's like, we got trouble.
Yeah.
Danger. Don't do that. That's not a smart thing. Be cautious about sharing your struggles with someone of the opposite sex. That's not a healthy thing to do. I can't tell you how many people have sat down in my office in the past and started a conversation with something along the lines of, my friend was having marriage problems, and so I've started talking to him, and this would be a lady, and immediately it's like, you don't have to tell me anymore. Or a man come in and say, my old college friend was having some marriage problems, and so they reached out to me, and we started visiting, and it's like, you don't have to say anymore else because I already know where you're going with this. When you start visiting with people of the opposite sex, we're talking trouble, and that's just not a healthy thing.
Not healthy. So, yeah. Seek help other than with someone of the opposite sex.
Yep, that is exactly right. Communication daily. Daily communication is healthy. And so that means it doesn't always have to be, hey, welcome home. We're glad you're home from work. Let's talk about our problems. But just to communicate daily, just to visit daily, just to have some time talking daily is a healthy thing to do.
It's not only healthy, it's just a necessity.
Not communicating doesn't fix anything. You're gonna have to talk about stuff. And while communication comes really easy to women, not so much to men. Men's not as crazy about communicating as women are. Somebody made a really good comment, and I'll throw this out here. And most men will understand this because men are, generally, most husbands have a very high sex drive. But just to help you understand, men, sex to a husband is what conversation is to the wife. Meaning that as important as sex is to you, and you're going, man, I love that, that's exactly how your wife feels about conversation.
That's true. And you know, if you're communicating daily for a good length of time and really communicating, then chances are you're not going to find yourself in some of the struggles that you may be having now. But if you're in struggles, definitely the only way you're going to get out of some problems and whatever is to talk about them.
Yep.
I mean, you just are going to have to face a little conflict. Did we talk about that? Conflict helps you grow.
It does. It does. Meaning, when you go to the gym and you lift weights and it makes your muscles sore, that's conflict. Mm-hmm. But your muscles don't get bigger without it. A marriage without conflict or a marriage without ever working through problems is going to be pretty weak. And my old friend, now we live in West Texas. This is cotton farming country, and for you folks listening, this may really throw you for a loop, but we live in cotton farming country, and I asked my buddy who's a cotton farmer one time, I said, wouldn't it be nice if you had perfect weather and rain every few days for your cotton and it would just grow big and strong? And he said, oh no. And I said, why? And he said, because the cotton does better when it's stressed out a little bit on occasions, when it doesn't get everything it wants. So his point was not everything has to always be perfect. Sometimes it's healthy to work through some stuff. And so, yes, conflict can bring some growth. You'll grow through stuff. Pray together. That's a healthy thing to do. Tell your spouse, I prayed for us today. I prayed for our marriage. Let your spouse know you're proactive in praying for that. Pray together. That's a healthy thing.
Yeah, and if you're struggling, I mean, who more would you want on your side than God? I mean, he's going to help you be able to fix things better than anybody else.
Ask God to bless your marriage. We got one more we're going to cover, and this is a good one. Remember to work on your marriage all the time, not just when things are going bad.
That's right. I mean, so we're talking about, what you can do when your marriage is struggling, and you may be sitting here listening thinking, well, we're good right now. We're not in a place of struggle. So we just want to remind you that that's awesome. Keep working on your marriage. Keep doing the things you're doing, so that hopefully you won't get to that place of conflict.
Yeah, you just have to understand that you need to invest in your. A lot of couples, man, they drop everything. You should do this. This is right. They drop when marriage struggles come. They drop everything and start focusing on their marriage. But if you would do that when things are going good and not just when things are going bad, there would be much less bad.
It's true. I mean, you may think, man, we hadn't read a marriage book in forever. Well, it's time.
That's exactly right. I had a young girl, and I don't, she was new married, and I don't want to rough her up, but I thought this would be a good point to bring this up right here. But she contacted us one time and said, when we all be coming and doing a workshop in such and such city? And I was a little confused because I messaged her back and I said, well, we were just there 3 months ago. Did you not know it? And I was thinking, man, we have done a poor job communicating to this little community that we were there. And I thought, how can we do a better job communicating? She said, oh no. She sent a message back, said, oh no, I knew y'all were here. I saw the ads and knew y'all were coming, but we weren't having marriage problems then. And it was just like, oh, I want to choke her. You don't just go to a workshop when you're having marriage problems. You don't just read the book when you're having marriage problems. You don't just go on the dates when you're having marriage problems. Do those things all the time, and then there'll be a whole lot less marriage problems in there. And so that is just one of those things. And we've got to do a good job at investing in our marriage, not just in the hard times.
That's true. And even when you think things are great, and they probably are, there are things you can improve on. Even if things are going really well, you can always improve on something.
It's true. I think there may be some couples listening today that are struggling, and maybe they've listened together, and maybe they've just not sure how to handle things or deal things. And we've given you some good points, and we hope that you've maybe taken some notes, and we'll do some of those things. But we would like to pray with you before we end our podcast and just ask God to bless you. Is that okay, Miss Morgan?
That'd be great.
All right. Father, we just give you thanks for each couple that's listening today, each person that's listening today, and we ask that you'd bless their marriage, that you would give them strength, that you would give them some light at the end of the tunnel, that their marriage can be better and their marriage can be fixed. We pray, Father, for the marriages that are doing well, that are listening, and that they would continue to focus on their strengths, overlook the things that get on their nerves that their spouse does sometimes, and focus on the things that they do love. May you forgive us for being selfish and stubborn and prideful and rude and unkind and dishonest. All those things hurt our marriage, and we pray, Father, that we would focus on the things that would bless our marriage. We thank you for being so good to us. We thank you for your Son, Jesus. It's in his name we pray. Amen. We appreciate y'all joining us today, and we will be back next week. We're going to talk a little bit about anger is on the subject. Yeah,
Tough one next week.
Well, I don't ever get mad about driving and traffic.
Exactly.
In big cities.
Some road rage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's not quite the direction we're going. But.
Thank goodness, because I'd just go ahead and confess.
We'll see y'all next week.
See you guys.